Welcome to the Low Carb MD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we are bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome back to the Low Carb MD podcast. Tro, good to see you. I'm outnumbered today. I got two New Yorkers here on me, man. Crud. I'm just a little West Coast guy. What am I going to do, Tro?
Listen, what I'm going to tell you what you're going to do is you're going to hear an amazing story, right? And when I heard this story, I was moved. Very few men, right, have the, what I'd say, the balls to talk about their vulnerabilities. Not very few men have these, particularly first responders. I'm talking about military and firefighters, EMTs, police officers, right? They very often keep their mental health struggles to themselves. And when I met Frank Voce, right, from his, we had a couple of friends meet, I was just moved by his story. And then I find out he's got an amazing not-for-profit called Reps for Responders, right? And I'm impressed, where they literally take people who are first responders struggling with mental health, pick them up, right, and help them, help them get to where they need to be, get the mental health care, have an avenue to talk about their mental health issues, and even pay for their gym memberships, amongst other things. So I was moved. And then it turns out we know some people in common. He knows there's a great doc out in Arizona. He could talk about it. Who's doing great work for our first responders. And we had a connection. And then I find out this guy's down the block from me, right? Amongst everything. So I had him over. I think I've met his whole family by now, right? I think I met mom, dad, I met his wife and his brother. Bottom line is this guy, Frank Voce, is doing amazing work. And he's getting this county healthy, but he's also helping people all across the United States get healthy, tackle their mental health, live a sober life. And he's doing that by expressing his vulnerability. He's expressing his journey. Frank, we're so happy to have you here, man.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words. And Dr.
Did I get it right? Did I get it right?
Yeah, you got it. Frank Voce, whatever you feel like saying. I don't take things personal. I can't afford to take them personal.
You know what? It's the Italian, I don't know if it's Voce or, you know what I mean? Like Dolce or, so. But Voce, Frank Voce, Reps for Responders. Guys, if you're looking to make a end of year donation, 501c3, so tax-free donation. So that's a big deal. But anyway, did I get it all wrong, man? Did I get you wrong?
No, you got it right, man. You're good. I just want to thank you, Dr. Tro, for your service and your help, your friendship already. And Dr. Brian, thank you for having me on. And it's nice to meet you.
No, thank you for your service. I have a place in my heart. I have a lot of friends who have been, in the service and police, and I know what you guys go. I don't know what you go through because I haven't had a gun pointed at me, but I know from their experience and what they share with me, it's unbelievable what you guys go through. So, and the after effects. So I'm so glad you're sharing your story. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm ready to make it happen. Let's hop in the police car and go.
So before, you clearly have what I know about your story, and maybe we could talk about it a little bit. You've always been interested in health. You've been a big lifter your whole life, so you've had clearly a passion for wellness. But and you, if I remember, also you come from a lifelong kind of history or a family history of people in the service, right?
That's correct.
Right. And so here you are, you're in the police academy, you're interested in fitness, but things weren't always as easy. Now you're married, now you're working with the NYPD, but it wasn't always that easy, right? So can you talk about some of your adversity and when did things take a turn from that picture of kind of perfect life to the reality that we all face?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. There's going to be some AA terms in here, so if there are listeners that are sober, that is great. So it kind of goes what it's called Frank's plan versus God's plan or your higher power plan, whatever works for you. Frank's plan, when to me, when I find out you try to force things in life, right? And this is the thing about you. There's good things to have goals in life, right? You want to have goals, you want to have a plan B and a plan C. But when you create that movie in your head and you get to that scene and you're like, oh crap, um, this is not where I pictured the movie to be. You have to have an outlet for that. You need to prepare for that. And what happened with me was I became a New York, and by the way, I'm here representing myself, Frank Reps for Responders. I'm not representing the New York City Police Department whatsoever. I'm here to share my personal story that has nothing to do with um, being here for the NYPD. So I just want to get that out of the way. So I became a police officer in 2015. And Tro, you are right. My father's been a volunteer firefighter for 40 years. My uncle was FDNY. He had to retire because of 9/11. Both my great grandparents were NYPD officers, and my other grandfather, both my grandfathers were in the service, but one was actually Vietnam, two Purple Hearts. He was FDNY, but he had to retire because of PTSD and now alcohol use disorder. The DSM-5 kind of changed that term. So 2015, got into the police academy and hit the streets in the South Bronx, basically January of 2016. And I got there and I said, what the hell am I doing here? Right away, instantly, that force of nature saying, fight or flight or freeze starts kicking in, saying, I could do something else. Do I really want to be a cop for X amount of years? And kind of seeing how the job was when I first got there. And then I gave it some time and I ended up loving it. I was there for 2 years, met some really good people, cultures, just life wasn't just the county I grew up in. Like you're in the Big Apple now. They say it's the greatest show on earth, or you have front row tickets to the biggest circus, right? And you build a lot of other type of skills because you got to know how to talk to people. Verbal jiu-jitsu is huge. If you don't have to, and I say have to put your hands on people and things, why even do that, right? So why put yourself at risk, the community at risk, your partner at risk? Knowing how to talk to people is huge. It keeps your mind going. You're literally problem solving throughout the whole entire day. So when we were talking, Brian, earlier, and it's not even the gunpoint stuff, it's pulling a car over, going to a family dispute, not knowing what's going to happen, giving someone Narcan, giving somebody CPR, trying to talk to a mother just because their kid won't go to school, or trying to talk to a mother because the kid won't turn the TV off and start screaming, right? So there's a lot of responsibilities out there, and it does burn you out. It does burn you out quick if you don't take care of yourself. And that's what we'll get in the rush for responders. So I had a great career in the NYPD for the first 2 years, and I actually left. I left that department and I went to a different department. I went to my hometown department, and that's where my life started to turn upside down. So that was in about 2018. I got here, and when I got to that department, and I couldn't get out of my own head. So NYPD, 2-man to a car. And when I crossed the bridge, I was pretty good at when I go in home, you try to leave it at work, right? Because if you bring it home, the hypervigilance, the magic chair, that's all Kevin Gilmartin. His book, I'm also a survival guide for law enforcement. The cortisol levels, that's going to lead to an early on heart attack, right? The average age of a cop is 57 to 65. 50% of cops, when they retire, 50% within the first 5 years have a major cardiovascular issue, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, or heart attack, right? And that's just over time of how much, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not, I just really into this and studying this, but how much can the body really, really take from that adrenaline rush to that cortisol drop every single day? You need an outlet. So when I got to this department, I couldn't get out of my own head. Do I want to do solo patrol for 20 years in my hometown? And I just felt like I was stuck. I felt like I couldn't leave. I felt like, and I couldn't get out of my own head. So the way I knew best to try to not think about it was hang out with Jack Daniels and Jose Cuervo.
Mhm.
And before that, I would drink on my off days, right? Socially in quotes, but I didn't learn that. I didn't know any of this, but until I really dove into sobriety, I was the kind of guy that I ain't not having one. If we're having one, we're having 20. If Tro's at the bar, I got to buy him at least 3, 4 shots, tell him I love him, tell him he's such a great guy, talk to everybody. I can hold a conversation with a bar stool and become friends with them, right? Um, and for a long time, I said to myself, well, my father is an alcoholic, alcohol use disorder. My grandfather, who passed away when I was 1 years old, he had a heart attack in ShopRite from drinking and smoking. This is just who I am, This is just, it's not a big deal. This is who I'm going to be. And talking about that movie already planned in my head. So I would say 2018 we're at, and it got dark really, really quickly. Started drinking way more than I usually do. Started drinking alone, big symptoms, moved in with the apartment with my girlfriend at the time, thinking that'll make her happy and solve everything. That was a disaster. Couldn't get out of bed. Didn't even pay for cable, Wi-Fi, none of that, right? So now stopped going on social media, and I stopped lifting, playing college football, competitive powerlifting. So I knew something was wrong. And I'll never forget when I had my first, and I hate to say the word, but panic attack, but what is it, right? It's a fight, flight, or freeze response when I had it. And it was the normal, and I didn't know what was happening at the time. The throat closing, the heart racing, the blurry vision. I mean, I'm talking like it would take a minute just to get a word out. I knew something was wrong, but what's this story all about? I'm a cop. I can't talk about this. I can't tell anybody. If I do, they're going to take away my gun and shield. And if I don't know if I'm not a cop anymore, I don't know what I'll be, right? Kind of that early thinking.
So there's a big pressure on you as a cop, but I think there's a pressure on just all men. It's,
100%.
if you look at the statistics, men are much more likely to experience depression, alcohol use disorder, and much less likely to seek out care, right? So how does that happen, right? I mean, this is outside of, NYPD, this is outside of being a first responder, this is outside of military, right? And the pressures to, maybe not disclose your mental health issues. So here you are at a young age, and it sounds like there's panic. It sounds like there's maybe depression, right? And you're beginning to recognize it because you're seeing it's affecting how you function. You know something's wrong. You don't know exactly. You can't. It's like a faceless problem. So when does it become something? When does it go from, oh crap, I've been self-medicating with alcohol, to holy crap, I got to take care of this?
Yeah, so that was January of 2018. I started giving, those symptoms probably happening February, March. And I'm 25 at the time then. And I didn't believe in depression, right? I'm 25, but emotionally, I probably was still 20, to be honest. And yes, drinking does stunt emotional growth. I firmly believe that 100%. So I finally saw a therapist, and people were telling me to, and I was fighting it. And I was so in my head that I was paying this therapist, who basically also saved my life. At the time, I wasn't, looking at it like that, but now I can. I was paying him cash because I was so worried that the job would find out if it went through insurance that something would happen, right? So that's just, and by the way, that is not true. Okay. The time since 2018, the times have definitely changed, especially in my department. And I know departments over the country are trying to incorporate health and wellness units or resiliency units and things like that, peer support officers. So probably I saw a nurse practitioner of psychiatry, which I firmly believe was just not, it didn't make the situation better. She also told me to go to AA meetings. I said no, right? So you can go both ways. But I saw this girl, and I got diagnosed with OCD of intrusive thoughts. I'm like, OCD of intrusive thoughts? I said, listen, this is not McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's. I couldn't get out of my head. Should I stay? You know the song, should I stay or should I go? Nah, right?
Clash.
Should I stay in this department, or do I go back to New York City? And I could not stop talking about it. So yeah, maybe I became compulsive about the idea, right? But when I'm telling them I can't get out of bed on my off days, I can't do any things, I'm having these freaking panic attacks, or the fight or flight attacks. So whatever. Let's say that's April, May. First I've never been on an SSRI in my life before that. Okay. So the first dose of medication I get put on, and I'm still working, right? Still trying to fake it at work. Guys know I lost 20 pounds. So I went from 185 to 165. I would have a green tea and a protein shake at one of the stores every day. That's all I would eat. And I got put on Seroquel and Prozac. And within the first 2 weeks, I could barely sleep. My thoughts were so much faster, like rapid. And I thought they were already fast, but this was like hyperspeed, like Millennium Falcon, like just taking off. And after those 2 weeks, that was the first time I ever had suicidal ideations in my life. And I was kind of saying, what the F is going on here? So I said, why would I take this medication if I could just drink and feel better, in quotes? So what did I do? I cut a cold turkey, which you absolutely do not do. I'm just saying, I would not do that again. And I would go back and forth on the medication, off the medication. And I would tell her. So then I got put on Zoloft. I was saying that wasn't working. Then I got put on Wellbutrin. Then I got put on Rexulti. This is all in like a 3-month span, people, So now I feel like a lab rat. I feel like a guinea pig. I can't even focus. I can't even remember the password to log in at work.
Anybody, so you're on 3 different medications.
Well, there were one she would go, I would go from like, oh, Zoloft's not working. Let's cut the
Not
Zoloft
working.
and let's try the Wellbutrin.
Yeah. So did anybody ask you, what's your sleep schedule like? Who are the people, the good influences in your life? Where do you relieve your stress? What do you eat? Did anybody ask,
My therapist did, but I would always change the subject. But yeah, he knew he knew I wasn't sleeping, I told him I'm just not eating anymore because I was withering away. Like you would see me and it's like, holy crap, like you lost some weight, man, from lifting, and now you're, I'm like, I'm not lifting anymore. I don't care, that type of deal. But yeah, those basic questions, nobody else ever really did.
Got it. So nobody, they're giving you meds after med after med, and then pretty much nobody's like trying to address the root cause.
Yeah, just go to an AA meeting and stop drinking. And I said, well, what is that going to do? And then that conversation would just stop. And I knew I had to stop drinking, but I couldn't.
So
yeah, it's such a huge, the cycle is so disturbing. And we see this a lot in what we do, with metabolic health. And we see someone stressed, they start drinking more, they can't sleep, they get more stressed, they're stressed, they can't sleep. And in your case, what happened, and I just want to make a distinction for people listening. It's a lot of us have anxiety. It's like, oh, I got to go meet a new person, or I got to go, there's a spider I'm afraid of. But a panic attack is so scary because you could be sitting there just having a good time with your friends, and all of a sudden you got to get out and you can't breathe, and there's nothing you could put your finger on. That's the trouble. And you just have this overwhelming sense that you're going to die. So people end up in the ER all the time with panic attacks, right? Anxiety attacks. And so it's so hard to you can't live your life because you don't know when it's going to happen. And so you could be, I've had friends have panic attacks just going to meet a friend to go fishing, and they have a panic attack. Like, I think I had a heart attack. I'm dying. What's going on? I can't breathe. And, it's so scary because you have and us guys, and especially as a police officer, you want to be in control of the situation. When you can't control it, it is devastating mentally.
Yeah, you hit it spot on there, Brian. It's kind of like, then it's like the what if factor comes in, and then you get so consumed, you're trying to, when you expect, like, when's the next panic attack going to happen, right? When is it going to happen? When it first happened, it is scary because it's like, oh, you have a heart attack. And as a cop, right, you see it all the time too. You bring people that think they're having a heart attack, and then it's basically the anxiety attack. And yeah, that also, I say it all the time, is that the anxiety also keeps us going, keeps us alive, keeps us fighting. Everyone has it. Okay, the new job, the new relationship, the new school, whatever it is. But then it crosses that line to say, when it really consumes your life, I just recommend you have to do something about it. There's now over 8 billion people on this planet, right? There's not a Frank Island, there's not a Brian Island, there's not a Dr. Tro Island. There are people out there that want to help you, and just, when it's time to surrender, not quit, there's a difference. It's well worth it. That's just my opinion. So 10 months, I finally pulled the trigger, and I left that department and I went back to New York City. And now at that time, it's about November of 2018. My girlfriend at the time left, all that. So now I'm really alone. My friends don't want to talk to me.
Just wait one sec. So you're like making these big moves. So it sounds like you're looking for some way out. Like you see there's a problem, there's something wrong with your life. And I don't get the sense that you could put your finger on it at that point. Right? You want out of this town, you want to out of, like there's a turmoil there that I don't think we fully explored. You something's wrong, you have some resources, you're getting it, but like how in tune with you with what your journey will actually entail at that moment? Or are you just kind of like making it day by day?
Oh, I mean, I was making it day by day. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Every day I wanted to kill myself. So people didn't know. People have no fucking, sorry for cursing.
No,
But
you can curse.
Tro's here, man.
I do it all the time.
Our audience
This is
used
New
to it
York,
now.
man.
yeah. Okay. So we'll
you're
bring out
like,
the
this
full
is
New Yorker.
all internal. Like people, like if you talk to your family, they would.
Oh, this had nothing to do with anyone else. This is my responsibility.
No, it's not your responsibility, but this is all internal, meaning like nobody knows. Like if you ask one of your friends what's going on with
no
Frank,
one could
they say it's
understand.
fine.
No one could understand because they don't, when people go to New York City too, it's like, I got the golden Willy Wonka ticket out. I'm closer to home. I'm safer. I'm making more money. People are like, man, this guy's crazy. What's wrong with this guy? Like anyone would literally give up like their left foot to go to this, go to the apartment. And the apartment's by me. But what they didn't understand was, and I knew what was going on. I didn't want to make that decision because I didn't want to let other people down. And that's the number one issue that tripped me up. My whole family grew up where we live, Tro, right?
Yeah.
Like they went to the same high school I did. It's a great job. Give it more time. But as I gave it more time, the closer and closer I was getting to the abyss where there's no return, the labyrinth. And I knew
Frank,
that I didn't want. Go ahead.
I just want to like clarify something in my mind. So was the issue that you were on your own there and you didn't have a partner? Like if you had a partner that was with you there in your town, would you feel more comfortable want to stay there? Or was it the idea of being solo? Or was it you see what I'm saying? Like going back to like if I had a choice between New York City and being where you are, I'm like, I'd rather be in the suburbs than New York City. But having a partner
100%.
may have been the deciding factor for you.
Yeah.
What's the angst? Where does the angst come from? That's what I'm trying to get. Like, I get the sense like you gotta cut and run. You gotta get out of here.
Right.
Where's that coming from? And what's not keeping you grounded?
Well, the truth is that I've never been alone by myself in my entire life. So codependency comes there as well. And I was so afraid of Frank. I did not feel confident of who I was. And also, there's a difference. NYPD has over 300 units. I also couldn't see myself answering the radio for 20 years in my hometown. And I felt like I couldn't escape. I felt like I made a decision for my ego to show off, to say I got out of the city. I did very well on the test. I made it, right? I made it to this team. I made it here. Suckers, see you later. And when I got there, that's not really what Frank wanted. That's what super ego wanted. And then I beat the hell out of myself every day, internally, emotionally, making fun of myself, calling myself, feeling guilt, feeling ashamed, all that stuff, and saying I should have just listened to myself. And I couldn't stop really beating myself up. And that's where the anxiety came. And then one day I woke up and everything was white, black and gray. It wasn't really black and gray, but I remember vividly the feeling of it. I felt like my whole central nervous system, my nerves were off. Like I couldn't even feel anything, nothing. And that's the scary part.
Yeah, and I'm assuming just talking to you, you were the guy in high school that was like the athlete, like everyone looked up to you, confident guy. I'm going to be a cop and I'm going to go in and save the world. So you had a motivation of carrying on a family heritage, but also saying, hey, I'm going to go and make a difference somewhere.
Yeah, it was like that Game of Thrones movie BS, right? Like I'm Frank the Fourth. So I kind of created that in my head that I got to do this here and everyone knows me in the town and all this stuff. And it's not really what Frank wanted at all. And then I just felt like I couldn't escape and I didn't want to let people down and all these different directions and to be honest, there was just when we talk about it too, the therapy and everything I did for like 2 years, I really had to just face some things in my past too that I never addressed. Because here's the thing, as a cop, you get through this psych eval, okay? And I asked this question in a room, the cops, and let's say I think there's about 35 cops in the room, and only 3 raised their hand. How many of you have seen a mental health professional before you became a cop? So whatever 3 or 4 out of 35, you do the percent, you do it. Frank, have you ever drank? No. You ever smoked weed? No. This, and that. Then you get on the job, okay? And now you know the stigma. Well, if you see a therapist or you try to get help, you can't handle the job. This guy's crazy. No one's going to trust you. And then That's from the outside force, and then the inside force of actual police work, right? The hypervigilance circle going up and down. It's only a matter of time. I always say no one's safe. It's only a matter of time till it's going to happen, right? So I didn't have the resiliency skills that I did have
So Frank,
now
I just
that
want
I
to,
didn't have.
want to pause right there. So you're saying basically, you know, one, coming into the force, being, you know, people aren't going to, you know, they're already not going to be in tune with their mental health, recognize their mental health, and be open about their mental health. Once they get there, between the hormonal kind of impact, mental health impact of the job, the external impact, and then the internal impact of not wanting to let your coworkers down, show vulnerability, weakness, not wanting to. So there's an internal and external system kind of keeping you from addressing your mental health. Did I get that right?
100%. You're like a prisoner. What you go out and do every day, right? You're a prisoner in your own job, in your own mind, in your own mind.
How does Frank break free?
So Frank broke free after making the decision to go back to New York City. And again, people thought I was nuts, but no one knew at that time, and still probably people don't know, that if I didn't go back and give this a shot, because I said to myself, I enjoy being a cop. I like being a cop. I don't want to give up on it yet. If I didn't go back, there might be a very high probability chance, if we're playing with the game of chance, that I might not be here any longer. Okay. So when I talk about the suicidal ID, it was real. It was very real, and very, very real. And it was pretty scary. So I go back, and within 2 weeks, people asking me questions, not talking, and they could tell, like, oh man, this is a completely different person. Like, I felt like The Walking Dead. And my aunt is a doctor she's an ENT at Lincoln Hospital, and she knew I was in a really bad way. And my family knew too, right? And again, my parents kept on pushing to stay and everything, and a lot of people did. And I walked into New York Presbyterian Hospital in New York City in December of 2018. I walked in, kind of surrendered, and I said, I don't know what made me do it. I just did it. And I said to myself, well, no, I'll never be a cop again.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. So you go from a massive internal pressure, massive external pressure, and something says, Frank, go get help. Maybe a family member, it sounds like, who kind of pushed you to get help or something. So or maybe it's the fact that your parents are there caring for you the whole way. Maybe that's part of it, but something's making you go get help. I mean, you know, I'm going to press you on that a bit, because I want to,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
What's making Frank walk into a hospital? There's so many reasons why he shouldn't.
Yeah. And in AA terms, as I guess called the higher power. But at that time too, like I was saying, my girlfriend left, my friends weren't talking to me. And I started to realize that, like, no one is going to save Frank unless Frank tries to really, really save myself, because I was going to therapy and stuff, but was I really, really trying? I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that right now. I don't think I was. I was fighting. Now looking back at it, I was fighting, but I didn't give it the full surrender.
Did you
But
know
I kind
you
of,
were fighting? Did you
oh,
know you were fighting back
did I
then,
know?
before you walked into New York Presbyterian Hospital? Did you know what you were fighting?
Oh,
Was it a fair fight?
it wasn't a fair fight because I was using one of the most powerful drugs on this planet, which is the devil's juice of alcohol. So no, it was not a fair fight at all. I was getting my ass kicked every day. I knew I was highly depressed. I knew it.
Were you seeing the depression, the anxiety is the problem, or the alcohol is the problem at that time when you walked into the hospital?
So the anxiety came first, okay? Then the depression came. And when I'm talking about no more panic attack, I couldn't feel anything, Dr. Brian. I'm talking like you could beat up my mom in front of me at that time and I wouldn't do anything. Like, I literally remember, like, having more empathy for people, of why, unfortunately, people cut themselves, right, when they're highly depressed, because they want to feel again, right? It was that. I'm not saying that I wanted it. I did that, but it was that I understood. And I started, this is going to sound weird. I started to see people differently. Like, I could see people like that. I was so depressed. I'm like, that person's depressed, this person, and started to gravitate toward them. And I can feel their energy. And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is like the good and evil fight and everything like that. And then there's something in there, like small little wick, so that like you could do this, you could do this, even though I didn't want to do it. And then we walked into Presbyterian, and that's a whole nother chapter.
Can you talk about your faith prior to that? Because you mentioned higher power a couple times, and we didn't even go to that. Usually we don't cover that here. My good friend Brian covers that more in his podcast. But so you mentioned higher power. So like, what is your relationship to your faith kind of before that, before you walk in?
Roman Catholic.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of Roman Catholic people,
I mean, were you just going to church and going, okay, that's what my family does. I go to church and it's kind of a ritual and you do it? Or was it like you felt like, okay,
doesn't
God's got
everybody
my
do
back?
that? No, at first I was really pissed off at God, in quotes. How could, it's like the typical drinker response. I feel like, how could you do this and that, shame, I don't deserve this, all those thoughts all the time. I wanted nothing to do with it.
So no real connection.
I used to pray every single night for 20 years. I made up my own prayer. I used to say 3 Hail Marys, a Godfather, and I stopped. I wanted nothing to do with nothing.
You just get numbed up. And what's interesting is during that same time,
I didn't give a fuck about anything anymore.
And what you're describing is empathy. You had empathy because you could see someone and go, man, they're hurting. There's something going on there, because you know what it's like. And people who haven't been through that can't really have that empathy. It's hard to do because
it was so strange.
It's a strange thing, right? How you can connect.
I used to sit, this is how crazy, because I didn't want to be home. I didn't want people to see me. I would drive like 3 towns over and sit at a Dunkin' Donuts for like 3 to 4 hours and just try to write and sit in my car and I didn't know where to go, right? I would also do other things like drinking and stuff, but I would just sit there and like try to write and just try to like just get away, call people nonstop and just see people come in and out and be like, you can feel it.
So
it sounds crazy.
No, it doesn't. So if you look at it, you're journaling basically, which is such a healing tool. And
attempting to, yeah.
Right. So you're journaling, you're avoiding seeing other people. You don't want shame, guilt, and other kind of stimulus, right? And you want to be around people. You're like desperate to connect. So if I had to analyze that, I mean, you were trying to self-heal, avoid bad, find good, right? So, okay. So something's making Frank walk into that hospital. And I don't know that I mean, you're describing this higher power. What happens next?
So I walk in a Presbyterian and I walk in there and I go in the back room, and I know what this back room is because they want me to take my shoes off, and it's like the psych part of it. And here I am as a cop, right? Right? Not even in quotes, because I am still on one today. I've put people here before for the past 3 years, right? And the empathy starts hitting now more though, and I'm 30 years old, by the way, right now. I was arrested when I was 16. I arrested people. I have put people into the psych ward. I have been in a psych ward, right? So it's kind of like, what's the next, what's next? And they tell me, the doctors there, the psychiatrist, and I guess a social worker, and I'm like, listen, I don't want to explain this. Like, I've already explained this like over 100 times. I just need some help. And like, okay, we feel very sorry for you. Sign this piece of paper, we'll get you some help. And I said, okay. So I signed this piece of paper, and they send me up, and I'm in Presbyterian in Manhattan, looking in this like big glass room, like solo bed, like this big glass, looking over New York City, and like for a glimpse of like bliss, a glimpse of tranquility. I like just looking over the city. I'm like, oh, that's like I remember saying to myself, like, that's a nice sight. And I haven't, I never said anything like nice like that to myself in a while. So I tell the nurse, I'm like, all right, I got to fall asleep tonight. Pump me up, bring it out, give me whatever you got to make me fall asleep. Let's do it. So I wake up and we go outside, and I go on an ambulance, and they're like, oh, sorry, we got to do it. I'm like, what do you mean we got to do it? We got to do this, right? And they put me in a stretcher, and they have to tie me down. I said, no. Then it started to click where I was going. They fucking send me to Westchester, New York Presbyterian, legitimate psych ward. So here we go. Go in there, shoelaces off, search me, all that stuff. And now I said, wow, now I'm really done. Like, maybe I'll be a lobster fisherman in Maine or something like that. Just get the fuck far away from people as I can. I can't let anyone see. My life is done. I am done. No one's ever going to trust me again. No one's going to talk to me.
So the shame and guilt is like paralyzing you.
Oh, it's
shame and guilt, fear of judgment is like paralyzing.
And no hope. And no hope.
Yeah. No, this is the labyrinth. This is Star Wars. This is Luke going into the deepest part of the cave and opening up Darth Vader's helmet and seeing himself. This is it right here. We're in it. Either do I run or do I do this? So I was there for about 2 weeks. Medication time, meal time, going outside.
I mean, look, can we like, so you're wearing socks and there's no shoes, there's no laces,
dude,
you're in a white outfit. They got
no, not that. Some people were.
So, walk me through the imagery there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I got stories on days. If this podcast could be like 6 hours, but so I'm in there. I got a roommate. I mean, it's like a little mini prison. The people that worked there knew I was a cop. I couldn't say anything. Really, really sick people. Like, all jokes aside, schizophrenia, psychosis.
Yeah.
There was a girl that was walking around the hallways with a book on her head saying, "Be careful. The Russians are after us." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Playing along with a little bit. Like, I got cameras in my eyes. They're watching and listening to us. Really smart girl though, but really, really sick people. And there's a guy in there named Stewie, and he comes up to me and he goes, "I know you," and I go, "All right, man, I don't know you." He goes, "You drive a silver car?" I'm not making this up. I really am not. I tell the story all the time. I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You crossed over the Macomb Stand Bridge?" I said, "Yeah, I have a lot." He said, "Yeah, you gave me $20. And I said, "Holy shit." Stewie was a homeless guy that was at the bridge every day. Okay. One day I gave him $20. Okay.
Holy shit.
And he fucking remembered it. He drew me a picture, all this stuff. It was like, I'm like, this can't be real, like, get me out of this vortex. He remembered it to a T.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this guy for 15 seconds. I said, "God bless you. Have a great day. I see you all the time. I caved in. Here's $20, man. Use it for the right thing. Thank you. Thank you." Did a little head nod. And that was that, on my way to work. This is probably 2016 or 2017 at some point. And
So
now
I'm just like thinking about this. You're in the most vulnerable position of your life. You're like, and then you get like I don't want to say it's a sign, but this is like an terrible coincidence. Right. And
some of us may say a God thing, but other people may say coincidence.
Yeah, your brain must be going like freaking a mile a minute trying to
just like, this is
what's going on. Is he planted here? What, so what's going on in your head, man, right in that moment?
In that moment, I really couldn't believe it. And at that time I believe, God, right? Nothing matters anymore. Like, what? And I was just very, at that state of mind, I was blown back. I said, what the heck? So it gets better. It gets better. So I'm in there for 2 weeks. I have a roommate, Nick. I don't know where he is right now. I pray to the stars that he's still around. He was my bunkmate. He put me to sleep because he would not stop talking. Italian guy. Maybe that's why it was a vibe together. But this guy was very smart. This guy knew the DSM-5 in and out. But he was in his 60s. He was just in and out of psych wards his whole life. And he kept me he's like, "Come on, Frank." Because it would be here's the thing, guys. 24 hours in a day, okay? I would see the doctors for 10 minutes. I had 23 hours and 50 minutes to do absolutely nothing. Nothing else. They would have these small groups. People would mess around. It was a disaster. And I got put on Effexor. So here's another medication. I got put on Effexor. And I would tell them that I was very worried about people talking about me, about what we talked about, right? The guilt and shame. And they start going down the route that I'm hearing voices. And I'm like, here we go. No, I'm not hearing voices. Okay. I live in a small town. People talk, word gets out fast. This is a situation. Okay. Another female walks in, really having it, and she's in a crisis. You could say EDP, that's police terms, emotional disturbed person, or you can say PIC, which is more, I would say, nicer, person in crisis. So it starts coming to me, Tro. I go, where do I know this girl from? And I mean, like, the family she was with looks so familiar. And I'm sitting there, and I'm really trying to think hard for like 10 minutes. And I said, holy shit, this girl, I had a job. So we call police radio runs, right? I had a job. A female with a knife. This was the same female, the same family that I took a knife out of her hand, and she was having a major, major psychiatric episode. A year and a half later, I am on the same floor in the psych ward with her. Now that hit me. That hit me even harder than Stewie, because it also showed that just because you're a cop, that doesn't mean shit. That does
Yeah, when it's
not
stripped
mean
down and you're all right next to you, you're in the same boat. You're in the same
that's it.
situation.
That's it. It's like, that was it. So I left. I left the psych ward. I got out and I did like the Joker laugh. Legit.
So let's just say, just amazing. Those people that you had those experiences with, if you would have not listened and went to the hospital that day, you don't have those connections and those interactions. You wait 2 days
100%.
later, a week
Probably a
earlier,
month later. Yeah.
it is absolutely astounding how these things work out, and you get life lessons that come in the worst times.
And that was like the higher power just dropping little dimes, I guess, for me, right? So I left the psych ward and I started doing the Joker laugh. I said, holy shit, Frank, you're worse. You were inside for 2 weeks straight and nothing changed, right? Because as cops and maybe as men too, right? And as humans, we want everything right now. We want it now. It has to be now. And I didn't know what to do. So what did I do? I walked back in. So I walked back into the psych ward and my roommate, Nick, goes, it's like out of a movie. I walk into the dining hall. He's eating cereal. He looks up. He drops a spoon. He goes, holy shit, Frank, you're back. He goes, what did they do to you? He goes, I don't know if it's worse in here or worse out there, but you're back. So I see the doctor again and I go, I got to tell you guys something. And they go, what? I said, I can't stop drinking because still I was defending that. They go, why didn't you tell us that in the beginning? I said, because I didn't know it was a big deal. So they said, okay, here's his book. I want you to read this first chapter. And I said, okay, what's it called? They say the big book. I said, no, I know it's a big book. What is it called? They say, no, it's a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I go, oh, okay. Read the doctor's opinion. It took me like, I don't know, an hour and a half because I couldn't really concentrate. And there's one thing I got out of there. And of course, I've read it after that plenty of times, is that the little hope of people healing from this, and the way that they word it is that and I say we as alcoholics, alcohol use disorder, are allergic to alcohol. So if you're allergic to something, your body's going to react in a different way. And I started to think about it more and more and more and more. And I said, you know what? Maybe I am allergic because every time I drink, not a lot of good things really do happen to me. And when I drink, I don't want to stop for 2 days. And then I'll tell myself, all right, because the guilt and shame, by the way, was also kicking in before this happened. I remember when I was younger, I would wake up and feel guilty. And even if I didn't say or do anything crazy, it would still kick in. So they're like, okay, we're going to put you down to our inpatient rehab, but you have to wait another 2 weeks up here before we can get you in. Okay. So then I went there for another 2 weeks. And then I went and all my family and friends visited me. It was really nice. And I went down to their inpatient rehab for 2 weeks. Got out, saw the psychiatrist, the psychologist at NYPD, because now I'm, no gun, no shield. I'm on monitoring. They got to see if this guy's, completely lost his marbles. And I remember I went in there and I told the doctor, I still had a little strength left. I said, I want to be a cop. I know I'm a good cop. I came back to this job for a reason. I just can't stop drinking. And she goes, wow, like you're really, really depressed. And I really wanted to say to her, no shit, like you have no idea what I just been through. This was not like, and I'm not minimizing anyone's situation here, but I went on a call and it was really, really like bothered me. This was a job change that I couldn't accept, that I couldn't handle at the time, that I didn't really want. And I beat myself up to an oblivion and I started to cope with alcohol and I couldn't stop. I walked into the hospital on my own. It was not mandated. I did not get in trouble. I walked back in on the hospital on my own. Was not mandated. Did not get in trouble. So she said, okay, so then you're going to have to do outpatient. So I do some outpatient because the hospital recommended this outpatient. The job, in quotes, so now this is the start of 2019. Did not give me any recommendations. Did not tell me who to go to see. Oh, you already have an outpatient. You'll be fine. So here I am going to Jersey. My dad some days are driving me, Tro, because the anxiety started coming back so bad, right? Because now I'm medicated. I'm just on the effects right now. That I didn't even want to drive, but he was like, you got to go. So I would go. And it wasn't helping. It wasn't helping.
So okay, so now you're starting to get help. You're starting to, what happens? Oh, did we lose you?
I'm here. I clicked the wrong thing by accident. Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, we know there's a switch here and there's a happy ending. So what makes this all turn around, right? And then
Yeah.
and then you devote a lot of your psyche and energy into preventing this and helping this in other people. So can you walk us through that part of the journey from there to what happens next?
Yeah, absolutely. So February of 2019, I told the job, I said, I need more than just this outpatient. I need to stop drinking. I need help. My poor mother would tell me all the time, I found this place for you. I found this place for you. And I look at it and it's an inpatient rehab. And I would fight. I said, there's no way I'm going. I just got out of the hospital. I'm not going. I don't need it. Finally, one day I said, you know what? I'll do it. So I went to High Watch Recovery Center in Connecticut. There's a dual diagnosis rehab for alcohol, drugs, and you need to have that other diagnosis, mental health disorder, which was the major. I was clinically diagnosed with major depressive disorder and alcohol use disorder. So I went to High Watch Recovery Center in Connecticut from February 2019 to April 2019, 6 weeks in there. I was on the Effexor. I got put on Trintellix, so now I'm on 2. And it ended up being one of the best decisions that I could make during that time and in my life. So I got out and I got sent to a different place in the New York City Police Department in a detective bureau. And at first, the thought started coming back again. How am I going to, people are going to find out, they're going to think I'm crazy. It ended up being one of the best things that ever happened. I was there for 3 years, met great people, learned a lot of police work, detective work, and ended up working out. So I got out and I was sober for about a month. Now, at this time, I'm 215 pounds. Okay. So I went from 165 to 215 because I started eating again, but all this medication started, the water weight, the bloating. I've never been over 200 pounds in my life. So that also took a mental health hit on me, looking at myself and saying, you're just a disaster, trying to fight that. In therapy still after I stuck with that. And I was a month sober and I had this great idea to say, well, you know what, Frank, I'll only drink at Yankee games or the Jersey Shore, where no one's going to know who I am. No one's going to find out and things like that. And that didn't last very long. So finally, September 23rd of 2019, my girlfriend, now my wife, came back into my life. And I took her to a wedding. I don't know why she said yes. And the September 22nd, I went to a wedding. And I told myself I wasn't going to drink. And I walk in and I see a waterfall of Ciroc. And then I said, it's over, right? People, places, and things, triggers. And I said, okay, I'm not going to drink that much. I'm not going to black out. I'm going to be cool. I'm going to control it. She ends up, I end up blacking out. She drove me home. And I knew she was very angry. And we sat at the dog park and I had my dog. And she said, why are you doing this to yourself? And she said, I just came back into your life and I'm this close to walking away again forever. Like, not nothing to do with you. Your friends with someone coming back to your life. You still have your job. Why are you doing it to yourself? And I just thought to myself, like, why am I punishing myself? Like that moment of clarity right there. And it's called a spiritual awakening. And I said, okay, now I'm really I promise, I really, really promise I'm going to hit a meeting tonight. And I hit an AA meeting that night. And ever since then, that's when the trickling effect just kicked in, because 2019, what else happened in the New York City Police Department? 10 officers lost their lives to suicide in 2019. 10 active members of the service ultimately took their own lives. And you can count 12, 2 guys that just retired literally in 2018 also. And I said, holy shit, Frank, there's almost 11. That being me, that one, 11 could have been me. Then thinking, well, if I was 11, maybe there's other people obviously not going through what I was going through, but felt the same way. Then I started doing the research and just diving. I took my addiction and flipped the script and dove into this mental health little rabbit hole. And I said, wow, okay, 20% of everyday people suffer from trauma, anxiety, depression. That increases to 30% for first responders. The average age, like I stated before, 57 to 65 of a cop. 1 in 5 officers have a suicidal ideation in their lifetime while they're working or when they retire. And I said, wow, holy shit, Frank, you're not alone.
And a lot of this data is pre-COVID, right? And a lot of the craziness we've seen, and hating the police and defund the police, all this stuff and the disrespect and all that, that's before this. So just imagine now how many cops are walking around thinking, you know what, this isn't worth it.
So, and unfortunately, if we took a survey right now, I would guarantee you over 50%, probably 60%, maybe more, would be highly disgruntled with this job, at least in the New York City Police Department. Because there's 4,000 officers are going to retire this year, one of the most, I think, ever. Okay. And there's just not enough police officers because no one wants a job. And unfortunately, they are hiring really not qualified people. I believe right now, because no one wants a job. Nobody. So I said to myself, well, if the job isn't going to care, right? Because I'm still going through the psychology stuff. And I could have sent in you, Brian, or Dr. Tro, with a mask on with myself. And it's the same 15 minutes, the same questions every single time. They've not once did they call my house, call my unit and ask me, how's this guy doing? Because I could say, oh yeah, I'm not drinking. And I wasn't then after September, right? And I could say I'm not drinking, but I could be drinking a 6-pack every night. How are they going to know, right? So it really pissed me off. The reason why Rec for Responders started because I was angry, and I wasn't angry at myself anymore. I started to become proud of myself that, you know what? I had to kill myself, the version of myself. That's how I say it. I had to kill myself, but it was the version of myself. And it took a lot of crying. It took a lot of what I just explained to you, but that's the only way to grow. I believe it's called the hero journey. Okay. Joseph Campbell, Hero of 1,000 Faces. I firmly believe we live multiple lives on this planet, right? But when you're drinking and you're drugging, it is very hard to grow. I had to kill myself and I had to become this new person and basically start over again at 27 years old, freshly new. And that's where Rec for Responders started. And I said, I don't know nothing about nonprofit. I don't know anything about business, but I do know that people need help. And if I can't help them on the street right now, why not help? I never want anyone to ever go through how dark it was. Okay. And I started a nonprofit in the start of 2020. And the main original goal was I opened up a gym in where I live, free for first responders and military. 830 square foot space, dumbbells up to 100, 2 squat racks, a bunch of powerlifting gear, equipment, bunch of strongman, all this stuff.
So I just wanted to, so let's go re-summarize, because this is a huge part here, how you're taking your struggle and making it into a way to help your fellow man. But the big things were maybe like an absence of faith, lack of hope, right? And then something in you though that's like you need to get better, right? You need to do better. And then revisiting your same struggles and hitting a point where somebody sounds like a huge advocate for you is like giving you an emotional slap in the face, like, wake up, Frank, you're better than this, right? So these two things kind of really kind of turned it around. And it sounds like you leveraged AA, you leveraged your faith to really pick you up. And then you see that there's really no help for people like you. There's nobody for young men with mental health issues to get help. There's no real, besides like maybe the volunteer firefighter and maybe, the men's club at church, like there's maybe the BJJ, the BJJ kind of, the martial arts place, maybe the gym, but really there's no place for brotherhood and mentorship. And a lot of, young men are just lost. I don't know, Brian, if you agree with me.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about that. It's like, so many guys, well, even the pronoun thing, right? Everyone's focused on me. You have to do what I want you to do. It's like not saying, hey, look, I'm going through a struggle. How can I help you in my struggle? And I think, Tro, you and I have been through these struggles. I want to help someone else and we'll do the right thing and see what we can do. And, Frank, you're dedicating your pain and what you went through and all this stuff. But now you're focusing on other people saying, gosh, there's a huge need out there I can meet. And now you have a purpose in life, right? Now you have something you can invest in, something you care about, because if it's all about you and buying the new car and having the new stuff and, then all of a sudden he's like, okay, that emptiness is always going to be there. And people just don't get that part of it.
So you're like, 100%. I'm going to open up a gym. This has been my, you know what, man, we're going to be
in 2020.
In 2020, the pain.
Yeah, the start of March of 2020. Little did I know. Oh
my gosh, man.
So yeah, 4 months sober at the time. Okay, I need to say something very important. January of 2020, this is supposed to be my final interview with the doctor through the city, right? I get a phone call 2 hours before my final interview that I just went with this, obviously what I just explained. And they said they're looking for me, and I was at work, and I picked up the phone. I said yes, and they said, well, we got to tell you that your doctor left the department. And I go, what does that mean? Well, she got a new job and she doesn't work here anymore. So I said, okay, I'm a very nice guy. Okay. And I fought very hard for 14 months for this. I'm 4 months sober. I'm doing all this. And again, still, there's so much more work to be put in, but I was like on that track. Like I was feeling good. That's not right. So you're telling me that this doctor just found out today, 2 hours before this final interview, that she's gone to Washington, D.C. or whatever? We're sorry. It's a mistake up on the higher up end. We'll give you a call in 2 weeks. That 2 weeks turned into 8 months. Nobody from my job called me, texted me, emailed me, or asked how I was doing. I would walk into the work at the detective bureau and say, they don't even know that they're paying me. I'm getting free money right now. I'm like in purgatory, like the misfit toys. That's how you feel. They had no idea that I even existed. So that's what really kept me saying, you know what? They really don't give a shit. And the health and wellness section started in my job the end of 2019, when I was already, it was done. I was already in it. Like, so they didn't even start then. We had EAU, but I didn't call EAU. Didn't want to go that route. Maybe I should have. I called another outside organization that is involved with the NYPD, but they couldn't help me because when I came back to the job, I was back on probation. They literally said, we'll meet with you and talk with you, but we can't help you and get you help because you're still on probation. And I was very, very, very angry. That was like when I made that call like 2 or 3 weeks before I went to the hospital, like that life-saving call that I fought so hard for. And when they told me that was like that Achilles heel, that arrow to the Achilles heel, saying, wow, I'm really running out of options here. So yeah, open up the gym, March of 2020. The gym was an illusion. The gym was, because if I opened up a room and wanted to talk about this stuff, it would be me, myself, and I. And I think I would have a good time, just me, myself, and I. But I wanted another way to bring people in. And I really got the idea, Brian, through Mark Bell, like lifting through it and being on his podcast. And I was following him for years. Was the gym has always been there for me. It's not going anywhere. The barbell does not give a shit how you feel, what you look like, how much you weigh. It's always going to be there. So really what helped me fundamentally start to my process of recovery was working out, always eating healthy as best as I can, and talking about my day with like-minded individuals, even if it was good or bad. So what I wanted to do was have a meeting there once a week, call it like open roll call, whatever is said here, let it stay here. This is for us, and we'll try to help you find resources in our community. But let other men and women from different departments start to meet each other. Because if I'm a cop in the Bronx, I'm not going to want to tell a cop in the Bronx what I'm going through. But if I meet somebody else in Manhattan or Queens or a firefighter or a veteran, there's some similarities there. So
the anonymity and kind of, this is I'm not Catholic, but I know we got two Catholics here. The Catholics got something going on with the confession. You walk in, closed room, talk to a mentor, get advice. Is that how it works, Brian?
I'm not Catholic, dude.
I thought you're Catholic.
Come on, man. We got to talk.
Holy
I'm not.
I'm sorry.
They won't let
man.
me in, man. They won't let me in. Probably they know me. Yeah, but speak of the religious aspect. I take care of a lot of pastors, and guess what? Who are they going to talk to? You're struggling with pornography. You're going to go talk to your church. Who are you going to talk to? So if you don't have a community of people where there's a threat, because people are always unsafe, and so you're a police officer, you're a fireman, you're going through these thoughts, and you have these doctors. Who are you going to go to? Your hospital administration. Right. And you're going to be practicing there. Right. Good luck. Right. So that's the problem, is everyone talks about mental health, but it's easier said than done, because a lot of us can't have that camaraderie. You can't have that, someone to say, yeah, I know what it's like. I've been there, and here's what I'm going through, or here's what I did. Like someone like you, Frank, being able to say, yeah, you're in a different department. I know exactly what you're dealing with, because I went through that.
Oh, hands down. And I'm happy you just brought that up too, because, and we talk about the young men today, right? And 30 years old, I'm still a young man, right? Hopefully. social media. I mean, just because you share it can destroy you or it can help you, right? And it comes to self-control. But just because you share a post about, oh, we need to do this for mental health, we need to do that. That's great, because then it's just going to trickle down and what, no, you need to get out there. You need to talk about it, because the only way that movement is going to happen is actually talking about it and sharing your own strengths, experience, and hope, and let other people, wow, I had no idea that this person was going through this. This is something similar. Maybe I can reach out and just have a normal fucking human conversation. Okay. Instead of trying to show what, I don't know who said it, was Brian or Tro, I bought this car and I posted it and I did that, but they also left out that now that they're in debt $20,000, they're in debt $10,000, you know? So yeah, the gym was open up for 10 days and then COVID happened and we closed the doors for good. So we started a GoFundMe. It took off. I couldn't believe I raised like $10,000. And I was like, wow, people really believe in the mission. And that made me feel more motivated and things like that. So I put a lot of my own money into it, and then 10 days and said, here we go with the crossroads again, right? The hero journey. Do I take this route and go left and say, well, it's worth the shot, you know, 4 months sober, was worth a shot and I gave it my best, or this route and say, this is when first responders need you the most. But most importantly, this is when Frank needs Frank the most. This is it right here. And I said, you know what? It's working with me. I'm still sober right now. I got to go with this. I went this route. I have a great team. They supported me. My wife supported me. And we made it through the pandemic. We did a lot of stuff online. And now our program has completely changed from the original idea, which is forever changing. And I would say that we're not surviving, but we're thriving right now.
Which is awesome. Basically, it's an online support group, right? And you guys have a book.
Oh yeah, we have multiple services. Yeah,
you know,
so
you guys, you have an amazing book, reps for the resiliency book.
Yep, on Amazon.
Yeah, and you guys have a not-for-profit where I think it's, what'd you say? It's like 100% goes straight to sponsoring basically getting first responders into a gym and into a community.
So yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I would not say 100%, because we have so many other services, but we also, how would have to pay for lawyers, accountants, all these different type of things to keep it alive. And to be honest, there's not that many people this is my hobby, this is my passion now, right? Like I have my source of income. I have my job. So I'm doing this because it helps me stay sober, but I've seen what recovery does. I've seen the transformation. And I know if we can get Brian, I'm just going to use an example. Brian, we can get you to stay sober, and we can get you to get sober and see life differently. Then maybe you live, learn, and pass on to the next one and the next one. And even if it's one at a time, becomes 10, it becomes 20. And slowly you have also the chance, okay, to change your bloodline. I don't know if you can completely change your genetics, but also say, you know what? My father was an alcoholic. My grandfather was, probably my great grandfather. I'm done with this shit. I'm cutting it right now. So when I have kids, they never have to see me pick up a drink in my life. And by the way, my father went to the same rehab that I did. Okay, 2 months. He went in November of 2019, and he's been sober ever since. He was addicted to Vicodin and Percocet, and he was drinking for about 40 years of his life. He had alcoholic acidosis. And that gave me motivation. If this guy can do it, I mean, this guy was really half in the grave. Anybody could do it. Unfortunately, he's on dialysis right now, and he does need a kidney. He got diagnosed in February. So if anybody is out there listening, sorry for the pitch, but he does need a kidney. They denied me because I have ulcerative colitis. All my other tests were great, but I got denied from Hackensack and Penn Medical. And they just said I'm too young to go with that. So anyway, but my dad got sober, and if reps would end tomorrow or NYPD would end tomorrow, it's all worth it, because that was one of the greatest achievements in my life, to help get my own father sober. I don't know really else what to say after that. I don't even think I've ever said that in my life. Actually, this is the first time I said it's one of the greatest accomplishments of my life.
Yeah,
it's got to be healing for him to see that you did it, right? Because he knows he was part of the problem too. Like he was the example. Now you break that cycle. Disease. And while you're talking, I'm thinking it's the same thing as people, well, grandma, mom, everyone had diabetes, so I'm just going to get it. So the importance of exercise, as a matter of fact, Tro, you'll like this. This morning I wake up, the first thing I see, it says Washington Post report showing exercise reduces COVID-19 risk was criticized online for confirming the obvious. Now, when we talked about this during COVID, we got reamed.
Yeah.
It's confirming the obvious now. It wasn't obvious then. The only country that I know of in the world that was talking about El El Salvador.
Yeah.
The third world knew better than we did.
Yeah.
And we locked down the gyms.
You know what
And
De Blasio knew? De Blasio knew about fucking French fries and
French fries and
hamburgers.
hamburgers
Like Sam
for
Adams
free.
knew to give
Krispy
free,
Kremes you got if you got
Krispy
injected.
Kreme donuts. When we said that this is, my wife. So we saw what was happening in Yale and Greenwich Hospital. She literally went out and freaking baked 500 no sugar almond flour cookies, donated it to Greenwich Hospital the next day. This was in March. Because she was like, these people are going to get sick, right? These people are going to get sick. And it's just, we got reamed, Brian. Now you got me fired up.
I know. I got fired up this morning. I'm like, confirming the obvious. I mean, it's so frustrating because it's like, we talked about metabolic health because, you know what? Friends of mine said, hey, here's what we're seeing in the hospital. Here's who's dying. And it was very clear. And they go, well, you're fat shaming people or you're diabetes shaming. I was like, no, this is what I'm seeing. Like that's why it's frustrating because, the health department should have picked up on this and say, hey, let's do these things. Let's focus. We had 3 years to focus on this stuff and no one did. And we locked you down. We took away like what Frank's doing. The reason I'm fired up about it, Tro, we all get fired up because you have a gym where guys who are struggling can go work out together and they could talk about, hey, here's what's going on in my life. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite interviews ever was on Life's Best Medicine with Sean Baker. When he's talking about being on the front lines doing surgery on these guys. And he said, if you heard us talk, you would think we were the most evil people on earth because the only way we could deal with the craziness is by making fun of it. But we all were hurting. But that was our way. And no one else would get it except us. And it's like in the police, there's certain things that you guys get that none of us can get. And having that where you could work out together, you have a sense of community. Hey, I'm struggling right now. Can you help me? Can you spot me? Those kind of things. It's so massive.
Can I say one thing? Can I add to that? I think that, people talk about quote unquote fighting, the patriarchy. Have you ever heard this? Fighting the patriarchy. The best way to fight the quote unquote patriarchy is a brotherhood of strong men.
Amen. That's
right? And strong men and women, I should say. Actually, I really should say strong men and women.
And that leads right to what Reps kind of has. That was like the vision too, right? Of like, and when I started it, and I had a other Instagram account, and I made it Reps, and I started posting about. Now I become like the witch, because I'm talking about no. I can never call anybody an alcoholic, okay? But if you're suffering, your peace, your emotions, your job, your family life, your relationships, you might want to just see maybe you fall into the category. But cops, oh no. Now unfollow. Don't want anything to do with it because why? Because drinking, unfortunately, has been brainwashed in the police culture. It's going to church, it's going to, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, like you don't have to do that. And you should definitely not do that unless you want to die early or lose your job. That's up to you. It's only a matter of time until something bad happens. And what you talk about the group, Tro, like that, the tribe, that's what you talked about on the Rep for Responder talk, like that tribe, we've fallen away from that tribe. We think our tribe is our 10,000, 100,000 followers on Instagram that I guarantee you, maybe like 5% of them in real life, probably less. Okay. They don't know you, and they probably will never know the real you. So we started a group called Rep for Responder Talk. It's via Zoom. It's every Sunday night. It's from 7 to 8. We have a topic meeting or a guest speaker, and we had the honor to have Dr. Tro on, who absolutely did a phenomenal job. And we've had guest speakers as doctors, Navy SEALs, NFL players, everyday cop, everyday fireman, dietitian, just people from all over walks of life, because this is not AA. I don't want it. All you have to do, the only requirement is to be an active or retired first responder. Police, fire, EMS, EMT, corrections, nurses, police dispatcher, military personnel. That's it. Our job is to be here, and I can't do this by myself. And I started realizing when I started, I said, the goal of Rep for Responder Talk is the peer support, is to have everyone involved with each other. And we've had check-ins from 23 different states across the country. So now that cop in the Bronx that didn't want to talk about anything, here's a New Jersey State Trooper. Here's a Texas Ranger. Here's a detective retired from Colorado, Florida, Ohio. I mean, all over. Wow, I like what he said. Maybe I'll get his number offline. And now maybe I know that I may never even meet him in person. And there's no way this is ever going to get back to my precinct. Let's have a conversation. Let's start a friendship. It's been a huge hit, a huge success. We have a mental health professional that sits on the call. I'm also a recovery coach. My wife's a recovery coach and a health coach. And it's been a phenomenal, that's like our bread and butter of the organization.
Yeah, that
Now,
sounds
instead of,
amazing. I mean, I'm going to tell you, we're going to have to cut it short here. This is awesome.
yeah,
Your work is awesome. You know, the fact that you're trying to pick people up and at least help people who are otherwise unable to get help. And I saw a great TED Talk recently that made the case that the antidote, the answer to addiction is connection. And it's very clear that that's what's going on here. Frank, if somebody wants to donate to your cause, find you, talk with you, how do they reach out to you?
so that would be email reps4responders@gmail.com, Instagram reps_4_responders. We're on Facebook as well, reps4responders.org. And if you go to reps4responders.org, there'll be like a little donate section, and we have PayPal charity. If you want to email, we have Venmo, we have Zelle, but completely 501c3. And the money we raise goes to, like Tro was saying, the gym sponsorships, the health coaching, the recovery coaching, the nutrition work, all one-on-one. We have a whole program set up for gyms in New York that we work with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, CrossFit, strength and conditioning, but virtually recovery coaching, health coaching / nutrition. And we do a resiliency skills base with 2 of our mental health professionals that work with us. So that's where all the money goes. And yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on and letting me share my strength, experience, and hope with some top doctors in the country. And it was an honor to be here, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Frank, the honor's ours, it's, I would just say this episode will reach people. And I think there's so many people right now, they've lost hope. They're sitting on the fence. We've been told the police don't matter. You take the police out of any city and watch what happens to that city. They're not the problem. There are bad apples, don't get me wrong. There are bad people.
100%.
But then you also understand that there's people going through so much stuff. I mean, I can't imagine every day going to work, not know if I'm coming home that night, and I don't know, if I'm going to shoot someone that night, all those things, all the reactions you have to have, you let your guard down for a second. You always, and as a matter of fact, when I was in Guatemala the last time, we had a sheriff with us, and this guy was petrified the entire time. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Chill out. But he knows everything that can go wrong. He doesn't have his gun. He doesn't have his badge. He is naked. He feels absolutely naked. And you go, wow, that's really, because you realize everything that can go wrong, and you're always on. You can't let your guard down. It's like a dog always on watch. You can't just go to sleep and not worry about stuff. So I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you coming on and really being vulnerable, and especially for guys out there who are, you're just locked in your cell right now of alcohol and drugs, and just that you lost hope, and I hope this reaches you, because that's why this podcast is here, to help people. It's not just the diabetics, it's everyone out there struggling. So Frank, it's a huge thing you're doing, and hopefully people will donate and help you grow, and there's a huge need, and it's very evident right now. So we appreciate you, and thanks for your effort.
Yeah,
You
thank
want to
you.
close this, man?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say one more quick thing. Thank you. And the number one thing in my life is my recovery. And since then, I still have my job, beautiful wife. A lot of great things has happened to me, things I couldn't imagine. And if you put that down, I can never promise everything will get better, but you will love yourself a little more. So, and a lot more actually. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and the 400 or 500 pound squat, I think we didn't even get into that, but I've been stalking you on Instagram. So listen, keep it up, man. And I'm rooting for you, and I know a lot of people in this county rooting for you.